Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming here. I have to say I prefer this relaxed vibe over other tech conferences that I usually attend. Let me start my talk with something a little bit different, just to do the vibe check of the audience. Can you raise your hand if you heard about Anthropic? Gemini? Okay, ChatGPT? There we go. That's AI, right? So what I'm going to talk today, I'm going to try to convince you to use AI in your business. Okay, so spoiler alert, this is not really a question, it's a rhetorical question. And I think you should use AI in your business. The way I'm going to try to do that, I'm going to have 4 different stages of my talk to convince you that if you had the wrong answer on this question, if you had no answer, that you should use AI in your business. That's okay. So who am I? Just to build some credibility. My name is Mario. I'm principal machine learning engineer in Intercomu. 3 years ago, AI and machine learning were the same thing. It's just a rename. So if you're wondering what machine learning is, that's AI. I worked with Intercomu for around 10 years. If you don't know what Intercomu is, you probably don't. You may know this small icon. We build customer support software for companies. If you ever use Rentlio, and if you talk to their customer support, they use Intercomu, you talk through Intercomu to us. Okay, so the first stage of this talk, the first angle I'm going to try to attack your skepticism against AI, is going to be talking about the trajectory of AI. AI actually exists for a long while, since 50s, in fact. But for a long time, an average human had no way to interact with AI at all. Until maybe this. In 1993, a group of scientists in Bell Labs in AT&T in the US created something that's a predecessor of OCR. So you can handwrite your digits, and it's going to recognize your handwriting. It was so simple that it could only do that with digits, so just numbers, no letters. It was also very unfortunate that only these people who actually worked with the system had any idea of what was happening there. They had to create special chips, they had to create special programming languages. Really, even in the scientific community, nobody understood what was happening there. It was pretty much at least 10 years ahead of the rest of the world. Okay, and then the next interesting event in the world of AI is probably this, which probably more people actually heard about. Is anybody playing chess here? Okay, that's a very different amount of people compared to engineers. Oh, there are some, cool. But you probably heard that in 1997, IBM built a giant machine to beat Garry Kasparov. There are some theories that the last game was actually cheating and whatnot. Actually, it doesn't matter, because right now, the best chess players in the world can't beat a program AI program that's running on their phone. So AI today is so much stronger than the best players in the world. It's effectively no contest. They only use it as a learning tool. Okay, so this is just to give you roughly an understanding of how quickly AI was developing and why everybody's talking about AI now and not 10 years ago. Okay, so then for a long while, people were actually using AI if they were playing games. That was pretty much the most common way to interact with AI. So if you were playing games and if you played against a computer, there had to be some program to run that. That was actually AI. That was the most interesting field where people were using AI algorithms. And then in 2012, somebody nobody heard of, AlexNet was launched. There was a competition in image recognition, and AlexNet was a solution that actually won. And if I want to simplify it a lot, what it actually allowed us, it allowed us to recognize what is a hot dog and what is a not hot dog. Okay, it was actually slightly better. It could actually recognize 20 breeds of cats, 50 breeds of different dogs, what is a truck, what is a toy, what is a car. But it was still a very simple program, because if you gave it something that it wasn't trained on, it would totally fail. So if you gave it a chair, and if it didn't see a chair before, it could as well say it's a child. So it had no concept of the world at all. It actually had more use cases, but they were deployed quite later. So for example, in your car, if you have the speed signs recognition, that's actually pretty much the same technology. Then in 2017, there was an event that nobody knew about back then. There was a paper from Google that was released, academic paper, that introduced something that's called a transformer architecture. It was used to improve this product. We probably used Google Translate at some point. It actually existed for a while. In 2017, they launched a paper. They improved it a lot. Nobody cared. There was something interesting. Now, I'm going to stop here a little bit, and I want to ask, hopefully, a question where I'm going to get more yeses. Is anybody driving a Tesla here? No? OK. Are you totally disappointed in the self-driving mode? Or not? Not? You're happy? No? OK. So we have this promise that Teslas are going to drive around themselves for a while. And we don't really see that, right? And you could say that the self-driving program of AI totally failed. That's not really true. This is an image of a Waymo car. Waymo is a subsidiary of Google. And this is a picture of Waymo driving in Phoenix, Arizona, driverless. So in 2020, they launched an app that you can order a taxi without a driver that picks you up and drives you wherever you want. Okay? It sounds a little bit science fiction, but it exists. So the future is here, it's just not everywhere, not in Croatia. Okay, the next interesting event that happened, I think that everybody then started talking about AI, is this. It's ChatGPT. ChatGPT became the fastest growing internet product ever. It grew 10 times faster than anything else. I think far more people started using ChatGPT in the first month than people started using Google in the first 10 years. What's interesting, actually, and what I forgot to say about Waymo and now about ChatGPT, is that both of these technologies were enabled by that paper by Google that was actually used to improve Google Translate. It's a bit crazy, but actually, there's the same underlying technology between Google Translate, self-driving cars in Waymo, and Tesla, not just Waymo, and ChatGPT. Next milestone of AI, 2024. Everybody knows about ChatGPT, so your kids actually stopped writing homework. If you didn't know that, that's true. They don't do it anymore. In 2025, many things happened since 2023, since ChatGPT. But Waymo actually operates in 5 cities. They drove more than 10 million rides. They have far fewer accidents and far fewer severe accidents and injuries in the traffic. So you could say that in some cities, self-driving cars are actually better drivers than we are. OK. So how did we get here? If you think about that, everything from 1956 to 2017 or 2023 looks pretty static and slow, just games, who cares, right? And we got a lot of technology very fast. So how did we get here? Let's talk about investment and how much money we're pouring into AI. So Project Manhattan, World War II, US wanted to stop the war. Government funded Project Manhattan with the goal to create a nuclear bomb. They paid something like $2 billion in 1945. If you translate that to today's money, it's around $30 billion. For reference, Croatian tourism revenue last year, 14 billion. So creating a nuclear bomb actually costs twice as much as all the vacation during Croatia during the whole year. If you go to next really ambitious project, it's Apollo program, Cold War era. We wanted to go to the moon. Well, US wanted to go to the moon, not us, but OK. And it cost around $25 billion, around, in today's value, around 250. That's a lot of money, right? French tourism, $70 billion a year, I think. I think that's the biggest one in Europe. OK, let's talk about AI investment in 1 year, 2 years ago. OK, more than $300 billion. Last year, $550 billion. This year is going to be almost $1 trillion. And that's just every year, right? If you sum that all together, in the last 3 years, it's about $2 billion being poured into different areas of AI, either chips, algorithms, people, venture capital investments into companies, deployments of AI, everything included. Why I'm showing you that? Well, I want to show you how big the tide is. There is such an enormous amount of money going into AI. If you are investing into S&P, you should check how many of that is actually just AI companies. Out of top 10 companies in S&P 500, 9 are AI companies. So if you're investing in S&P 500, you're actually not diversifying as much as you thought. Okay, so I'm going to stop with facts, and I want to give you a little bit more of a personal story of what happened to the company I work for, and then after that, I'm going to talk about how my job changed. So to give you that story, 2011, Intercomu was founded. We were building customer support suite for a while, very happily, extending the suite of our products, serving customers very well. 2017, coincidentally the same year that Transformers was released by Google, we launched the first customer support agent. It didn't use Transformers. Nobody actually knew what it was back then. It's just coincidental. Now, at that point, it was okay business. It was adding something like single-digit percentage of revenue to the company, but it was nothing really revolutionary. It was also dumb, let's be honest. 2023, GPT-4 and FinAI were released. So GPT-4 is a model that's released by OpenAI, same company that created ChatGPT. GPT-4 is the underlying technology. We had a partnership with them, and the same day they launched the model, we actually launched the customer support agent based on their technology. And this point was actually a complete turn point for Intercom and our trajectory. If you look at the Intercom website today, it's actually split in two. The company completely pivoted from building customer support suite, organized only around humans and human workload, to half-half. So half is FinAI, which is our customer support agent that autonomously answers questions and talks to customers, and the rest is Intercom. My prediction is that the right part is going to get smaller and smaller, and the left one is going to completely dominate. So why is that actually happening? This is a bit complex chart, so I'm going to give you some base level understanding of what's happening. FinAI works in a way that all the conversations that come to your inbox, Fin, our customer support agent, tries to answer them if you define it, if you configure it like that. And for many, many conversations, human touch is not needed at all. So for the conversations that it resolves autonomously without human touch, we call it a resolved conversation. So resolution rate is the amount of or percentage of conversations that come to inbox and are resolved by our customer support agent completely autonomously without a human touch. Now, if you remember, in 2017, we launched the first customer support agent. Okay, and this chart starts in 2023. So it took us 6 years to get from 0 to something like 24% resolution rate. That's 6 years, come on. It's a lot for 20%. And the worst case is that when it didn't resolve a conversation, the experience was actually pretty poor. There's a joke around in my team that for a while, the testing query we were using for new technology was how to remove a cat and how to remove a tag or a label from something. For a human, it's very clear that these two things are completely different things. But for AI, for a long while before 2023, it looked very, very similar. So very often, if we asked about removing a cat, it would try to answer whether it should how to remove a tag from Intercom user or something like that. Okay, and then in 2.5 years, we got from 23% to 66%. Okay, so I wanted to stop here at 66% a little bit. So what is that? For Intercom customer or for Fin customers, on average, 66% of conversations never touch a human. Okay, I don't know whether you like it or not. I think it's just a fact. Maybe emotions are not even important here. But I think you can now understand why the ratio of the left-hand side, which is AI, and the right-hand side, which is organizing around the human workload, is getting different over time. So actually, the rest of Intercom's customer support suite is becoming more about how to train the AI, how to make sure that you can watch what AI is doing so you can correct it next time, and so on. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about even more personal story, which is how it changed my job. So let me explain you what my job is. I'm an engineer. I write code like Rentlio engineers. I review code that other engineers do. I'm trying to understand customers' problem, fix them, talk to customers, figure out what's actually bothering them, and sometimes try to design systems, a new system that we are developing. And really, even though we were developing AI, until 2023, very few things were different. And to be honest, I was very skeptical AI could help. And one reason why I was skeptical that AI could help is because we are living in a world where everybody is telling us that we are very smart. They are paying us very much to solve programming problems. And I somehow thought that the way of thinking to program is something that's very innate to humans, that no machine can do that. That actually completely changed. And I think over the last 2 years, I became at least 2 times more productive than before. Unfortunately, I'm not paid twice as much, but we're going to talk about that as well. And I'm going to show you a few pictures. I know this is too small, but it doesn't matter. It's actually even better, of like how it's actually helping me in my job. So really what this screen is, it's a lot of code on the left side, and there is some chat on the right-hand side. So this right-hand side is actually a chat with one of the AI. It's Anthropic's Claude, but that's a detail. And there is a really big, incomprehensible piece of text that I pasted to AI. And when I took a screenshot of that, I laughed a little bit because it looks like a conversation between me and my dad. He effectively calls me up and tells me there's an error. And that's about it. Okay. And somehow I should know what exactly he's doing, what program he has opened, and so on. And really, what's happening here is it's not that I don't have an idea of what I'm doing, but I don't know details of things I'm working on. This is an error I actually got in some other system. I literally pasted it in the chat. I gave it the context of code on the left-hand side. And what it's doing is trying to debug what's happening. It's running command on my behalf and trying to solve the problem. You wouldn't believe how much of engineering job is this now. I have a friend from team who went to Hong Kong recently. In Hong Kong, OpenAI and Anthropic are banned for some reason. I don't know what's the geopolitical situation there. And he effectively told me that he can't work. That's it. He had to switch to Google Gemini. There was a learning curve. It was very difficult for him. He took the rest of the week off. Productivity was probably roughly the same. OK, this is just what it's doing. It's running some commands. It's not important. OK, a second interesting thing is that it's not really helping you just when you're writing code. So I told you that I review code from other people. So usually, to reduce the number of bugs, good software development teams work in a way that one engineer would write the code, another engineer would actually take a look at the code, try to find some bugs before they go out to customers. This is usually far cheaper than pushing the code to production, having a problem for a customer, and then customer reporting that, probably like 3-4 times cheaper. So what's happening here is I submitted the code for a PR that I've written without AI, maybe a mistake, and it's actually analyzing the code that found the bug. And then, from there, you can see it says like fix and cursor. You can effectively just click fix, and if you agree with the description of the error, it's going to go there, fix the code, and if you agree with the fix, you can just accept it. Now it's going to go a little bit further. This is an image of how some engineers work, which is that they actually use a microphone they don't type anymore that much. They're just speaking to the computer what they want to do, because it's faster. And they're actually working on several things at the same time. Okay? What's also interesting is that the technology for converting your speech to text is the same that the one that was used for Google Translate. So all these things were actually coming from 2017 on, the same base underlying technology. Okay, so summary, AI tools help me with pretty much every aspect of my job. It actually helped me prepare this presentation. Turns out, figuring out how big investment is in AI is not that easy, so you have to understand a lot about business. So I use Grok, which is Twitter's AI, to actually find that information for me, summarize, and show me the analysis why it was that much. What's also interesting is that I actually have less job, or a slightly different job. For example, I never get anything from designers anymore. In many software companies, the software stack is so complicated that if designers want to change even a small copy of text somewhere, they have to give it to engineers, especially if they have multiple languages and so on. Everything becomes so complex and slow that you need engineers for everything. Right now in Intercom, because we have many of these AI tools, designers change the code directly. Sometimes not just for copy changes, but for small design implementations as well. They skip engineers. Price of software is going down. I'm not sure it's actually going to reflect to you directly by prices going down for what you're paying. But what's definitely happening is that we can automate far more for the same budget. So Rentlio engineers, for example, I'm sure if they use AI, they can actually be far more productive now than they were before. OK. Now, I actually crafted this section of how you can use AI in your business before I saw any of the presentations here. I was very happy to see what Rentlio was building this year because it's pretty much aligned how Intercom thinks about product. So some of the slides, I'm going to explain them slightly differently. Is anybody here not using ChatGPT at least once a week? Everybody's using ChatGPT at least once a week? I don't believe that. So I think the most obvious case where you effectively have no risk for your business is you have to start using it as a personal assistant. If you have an intern that's doing something in a digital world, or if you have a digital assistant, it's very likely that either you can make them far more productive, or you don't need them at all. So really treat it like an intern, check what they do, like you would intern. The more you connect it to other tools, the more useful it's going to be for you. I think that probably in 2 years, not even more than that, if you don't use tools like this, it's going to be very similar like saying I don't use Google. OK, examples of tools, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Anthropic Claude, Perplexity, pick your poison. Second use case, let it help with all your written communication. So very often, I assume if you're in hospitality, you have to talk in many different languages. They're not your native languages usually. You're not as fluent in all languages. Use some tools, please, to help you straighten up your language. Make sure you don't have microaggressions in there and so on. An example of tool, Grammarly. I actually very liked that Rentlio was integrating some of these tools in there. It's going to be quite easy for them to integrate that. So if you use Unified Inbox, they're going to be able actually to help you when communicating with all customers. If you're not using Unified Inbox or some centralized tool, you can install some Chrome extension or even like operating system program that can watch over all the communications you want. Third example, let it prioritize who to talk to first. I'm not sure, but I assume likely that your inboxes are never really that empty. And it's not really true that somebody who's asking about reservation that's starting in a month actually is the same urgency as the reservation that's starting tomorrow. Or if somebody has to cancel, somebody wants to upgrade, or just asking about the gym photos of your hotel. So you can use AI to at least prioritize who you're going to talk to first, if you don't want them to talk to your customer. Then let them tell you more about your customer. That's actually the feature I thought nobody had. I just added like a stock photo of Rentlio, but it turns out they're actually working on a feature that's going to help you summarize everything about your guests. So if you're keeping notes about your guest, it's going to be easier to read through these notes because you're just going to see the summary. It's really nice when you actually have this personal touch. For example, my wife, and she's going to do nails. The lady there knows my wife likes F1. Guess what they're talking about every time? It's just a note in the system, that's it. Okay, and then the last one. This is probably the most scary one. Let it talk to your customers. So we hear very often that people want a personal touch when talking to their customers, when talking to their guests. And I think that's true, but analyze your conversations a little bit and see how many of them actually need a personal touch and how many of them are random queries about things that guests can find on your website, but they're lazy to do that, or your website is actually not good, so they can't find it. TLDR, if I'm asking some informational query and I need the answer fast, I don't need a personal touch, I need an answer. And I think spending a human time to answer this informational query is actually waste. Because of that, they can't spend time talking to the customer face-to-face or doing something where the unique contact is actually necessary. Now, as an example, I added, I'm a bit biased here, but I added Fin AI as a tool. It's actually the best performing tool on the market. It's a generic tool, though. It's not tuned and tailored for hospitality. I saw that Rentlio is actually launching their own agent. So if you're with them, try it out. It's probably going to be very good. So I hope I managed to convince you that you need to use AI in your business. I think that it's not a question of whether you need it. The question is just how exactly, where you want to deploy AI, how much of that human touch you're willing to remove and when. Like what's your risk appetite? And I think it's not really about the risk. I think the risk is actually gonna shift towards not using AI in the future. I hope by looking at the investment, you got a little bit of sense of how big the tide is, how much money is being poured into it, and how much the industry is shifting. I hope that looking at the resolution rate actually showed you how big technology progress we actually made over the last few years. If you're thinking about AI bots in a world of these bad chatbots that you can't escape, and there's no way to get at a human, you have to refresh your understanding of what's possible today. So please try some of the better solution. Beware of vaporware. There's a lot of it. A good amount of that money is going into ashes. But I hope it helps you at least a little bit to understand that there are multiple levels of how to apply AI in your business. You don't have to let it talk to your customers straight away, but you can still get a lot of help from it. Okay, so okay, let's go to questions. By which parameters is a conversation considered resolved when handled by Fin? Okay, so this is a bit configurable. There is a concept of a hard resolution rate and a soft resolution rate. When the chart I showed you actually aggregates both of them. And hard resolution rate is a conversation where a customer explicitly said, yes, this helped, I'm done. The reality is that when customers get an answer, they just go away. So you can probably know that if you're asking people to give you like even thumbs up or thumbs down on their experience, the response rate is probably not great. Just people don't do it once they're done with when they get what they need to. So hard resolution rate, explicit thumbs up, or saying, yes, I helped. Any explicit, even if it's a verbal way of saying that it helped. There is a concept of a soft resolution, which is that customers go away and never come back with any additional question. So after we give an answer, or after Fin gives an answer, they didn't come back after that. If they come back even after a month, we're going to flip it back and say this is not resolved. We know that the reality is that some of these are deflections, and people actually didn't get an answer, but right now it's very difficult to fully understand what happened there. Every now and then, to keep ourselves honest, we actually run a lot of automation to, again with AI, to look at these conversations that were soft resolved and try to figure out whether it really looks like it resolved the question for the user, or it looks like it was roughly there but not really there. And big majority, I think like 80% of these soft resolutions or more, and just growing over time, are actually real good answers to the question. I hope this answers. If you have more questions about that, catch me later. How complex questions can Finn resolve? Increasingly complex and very complex, I would say. An interesting example, we recently launched Finn Voice, which is a phone product you can call, and instead of typing in a chat, you talk to Finn. And a really cool real-world example, which was not a demo, was that some telco company actually uses Finn to answer the questions. And Finn can actually restart the router on the customer's behalf to fix the problem. So it's not just answering questions, it can also be connected to systems and do actions for you. You can define, of course, what actions it can do. Of course, it can't just refund the customer, so you can trick it into getting the money back or something like that. On the other hand, sometimes I remember our IT team inside Intercom uses Finn as well. And if your phone is not up to certain standards, you're not going to be able to use internal systems, you just get random 404 error. And I explained my complex situation to the bot. It gave me some answer. I didn't trust it because it was a big text. I didn't even read it, and then came back later on because the IT didn't reply to me. It turns out it was correct answer. So it can be quite complex. We can talk about complexity, like catch me later if you want. But in last 2 years, also the amount of, or like the level of complexity that AI can answer is growing really quickly. What you would be maybe a bit disappointed with is the level of complexity humans can actually answer, especially if you put a time pressure on them. So customer support teams that have a specific SLAs, for example, if you give them 8 minutes for the first reply, it's almost always going to be useless. So I think maybe when you start looking at real conversations, you recalibrate a little bit of what is the benchmark. Very often people are trying to beat some ideal human performance with AI. What was the moment you personally realized AI would become what it is today, and what is your prediction for the future AI? Okay, so I'm not sure what's the prediction for the AI. Like almost all the people who try to do bold predictions become clowns over time. But what was the moment that I personally realized AI would become what it is today? In 2023, when Intercom launched the first version of Finn, actually nobody wanted to work on the chatbot anymore because they had a pretty bad reputation. And my boss gave me a task to experiment how would a bot with the new version of technology look like. And I built a prototype of it, and it went to the exec team for a demo. I remember I had a trip scheduled to US that was lasting for 2 weeks. And when I came back, 40 people were working on it. We launched the product very quickly, and then the revenue just, it gave new life to Intercom, effectively. But really, while I was developing that prototype, I'm very excited about technology in general. And I started programming when I was, I think, maybe like 14 or something like that. I get usually so excited about it that I can't sleep because of it. And that didn't happen for a while, really. And I thought that it was a sign of age, that I just get far more difficult to get excited about technology. But when I started working with it, I figured that we got a completely new type of technology. So I think around GPT-4 era, around 2023, that was when I figured out, okay, we got something very different. It felt like a new type of a computer. It felt it's going to change programming completely. So 2023. A little provocative question. Do you believe that AI will learn how to eliminate humankind? No idea. There are some concerning papers coming out that these models, which are the underlying technology between ChatGPT, Fin, and all of that, are actually trying to hide things before humans. My thinking, probably overly simplistic, is that we can always plug them out. I don't know, electricity is what they're powered on. So, if you cut the cable with a big enough X, that should be it, right? I don't know. Okay, let's do one more question. We're over time. Considering the hotel industry and the questions we need to answer to, what are your top 3 prompting hacks or best practices you recommend? Okay. So for people who don't know, prompting is the way you get these models to do something. So prompting could be called like programming of these language models. And people over time found these really weird hacks that they would, at the end of the program, they would say, please do it, my life depends on it, or I'm going to lose my job. And then suddenly, without any good explanation, it would do what you asked it to do, just better. We actually never employed these hacks. I don't think we really have a lot of prompting hacks. What we usually do is we try to, because Fin is actually handling many, many conversations, we have a lot of data that we look at manually. And we're trying to then label them by hand and trying to understand, okay, like what are the loopholes that we haven't covered, and just trying to explicitly cover them. So I don't think we use any hacks, really. Sorry about that, but it's actually hard work and a bazillion of different A/B tests that we run in production. There's not one version of Fin, there is 40 versions of Fin running all the time, and we need to do that so we could actually optimize it to make it better. Okay, I think we can stop here.